Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Denise Foreman Gaines, and it is truly an honor to serve as your 2026 president of the Delaware Association of Realtors. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this DAR Connects update. I know how busy each of you are. You're working with clients, navigating a changing market, and managing day-to-day demands of your business. That's exactly why this time together is important, because your association is working just as hard for you. Today is about keeping you informed and connected. You'll hear about what DAR is doing across the state, from our strategic priorities and advocacy work to education updates, new forms, and opportunities designed to support your success. But more than that, this is about value. Everything we do is focused on strengthening your business, protecting property ownership, and ensuring that realtors continue to play a leading role in shaping Delaware's future. We are strongest when we are informed, engaged, and working together. So as you listen today, I encourage you to think about how you can stay connected, get involved, and make the most of everything your association offers. Thank you again for being here and for all that you do every day as realtors across Delaware. Now let's get started. I'd like to turn you over to Wes Stanoff, DAR's Chief Executive Officer.
I don't know what I should say about that, Denise.
I I don't know you.
Hi, everyone. I disappeared from the screen, so I'm not sure where I'm at. Um, but good afternoon. I'm Wesley Stefanik. I'm the DAR Chief Executive Officer. Uh, I think, can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Somehow I'm gone, but oh well. After 6 years of using Zoom, I think I would know how to work it by now. I suppose not. But good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We're going to cover quite a bit in a relatively short window, so I'd encourage you to keep a pen and paper ready. There will be a number of things you may want to jot down and come back to later, but please feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat, and we will try to get to them as quickly as possible. I want to start quickly on DAR's new strategic plan because it really sets the stage for everything you'll hear today. This plan was developed over the course of the past year with input from leadership, members, and staff. It's designed to guide the association over the next 2 years and keep us focused on what matters most, which is delivering real, measurable value to our members while strengthening how we operate as an organization. At a high level, the plan focuses on a few core priorities, as you can see on the screen: improving the member experience, strengthening governance and alignment across the state, enhancing the tools and resources we provide, and making sure DAR remains a strong, credible voice on issues that impact real estate and private property rights. I'm going to add a downloadable copy after I'm done speaking to the chat for you to see. If you're viewing this as a recorded presentation, just feel free to reach out to us at info@delawarerealtor.com and we'll send you a copy of it. But you can see the 5 goals. There are many different items underneath each one of these that we'll be working on accomplishing within the next 2 years. Every effective nonprofit relies on a strategic plan like this. It gives our volunteer leaders, committees, and staff a shared direction and a clear set of priorities. It also helps ensure that we're not just reacting to issues as they come up, but instead moving forward in a thoughtful and intentional way. And I will say, this is not something that we want to have sitting on a shelf. It's something that we're going to be actively working on every day. Even just in the last few months, a number of the initiatives tied to this plan are already going and they're quite frankly underway and being worked on. One of the most significant outcomes of the work that was the creation of the strat planning process was something called the Member Experience and Governance Task Force. You can see the mission on the screen. Oops, oh, give me 1 second. There you go. This group has been asked to take a hard look at how our state and local realtor organizations here in Delaware work together, and just as importantly, how we can do that all better. That includes evaluating our governance structure at the state level, taking a look at how it works with working with the local associations, identifying opportunities to improve efficiency, and making sure we're using our collective resources in a way that truly benefits members. A big part of this effort is recognizing that one size does not fit all. Our local associations each have their own strengths and needs, and any path forward has to respect that while still improving alignment across Delaware. At the end of the day, the goal is straightforward, making sure we are organized in a way that delivers the strongest possible value to our members while also positioning DAR and our local associations for long-term success. As part of that process, the task force recently completed a survey. So thank you to everyone who took time to participate in that. That feedback is absolutely essential and critical to helping the task force move forward. They're currently reviewing the results and using that input to help shape the recommendations. And those recommendations actually will ultimately be brought to the DAR Board of Directors, where we'll have a broader conversation about next steps and the path forward for realtor organizations here in Delaware, which will probably be at the end of this year, maybe going into a little bit of next year. You'll be hearing more about that in the months ahead, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood how it connects back to the bigger picture and the direction we're heading as an association. I just want to give everyone a little highlight of some of the upcoming events that we're hosting at DAR. We have a couple things going on in April. As many of you know, it is Fair Housing Month, so we are going to be celebrating that as an association by doing a couple different programs as well as a lot of educational content that we'll be rolling out. Our first big item, though, is our hot topic session, which is called Long Island Divided Revisited. Some of you may remember and heard about what happened on Long Island Divided and real estate agents being caught up in the fair housing sweeps that were occurring, the investigations. One of the reporters that was a part of that will actually be joining us to talk about what happened back then. I believe it was 2019, and then how that has changed the industry since. We are calling it Revisited because he did join us back in 2021, 2022. His name's Bill Dedman. He'll just be talking about kind of what's happened since then. So it should be a great session for everybody. One of the things we do as an association that many people are not aware of is our local presidents, our local CEOs, as well as the state presidents, all the leadership attend something called DAR spokesperson training. We educate our leadership to be the best spokespersons they can be for the realtor organization, not just for members, but for the community at large. We are hosting the At Home with Diversity course. This just came out in everyone's emails, I believe, the other day. Take a look at that. It's a great course to learn more about just diversity overall, fair housing issues overall, but you can actually use the designation At Home with Diversity as a certification in your advertising efforts. In May, we host a brokers and managers summit for all our brokers. It's one place we join everybody together and teach everybody and hear feedback on what members are hearing, what they want to learn more about. So it's a great session for the brokers. We're also having a market update in conjunction with the Delaware Mortgage Bankers Association in May. That's another hot topic session where the economist from Bright MLS will be joining us to talk about what's going on. Well, I guess we'll be in the middle of the spring market at that point. So it should be a great session. Please tune in for that. In June, we have a legislative action day. Joe Brennan will be talking later about our government affairs efforts. We have a great day over at Legislative Hall, which, if you're not aware, is right across the street from the DAR building. We will be, talking to legislators and their staffs about what we're interested in, the priorities we have. Always a great day down at Legislative Hall. If you're not aware of the conferences that NAR has, they have a NAR Legislative Meetings Conference in June this year. One of the big highlights of that trip is visiting Capitol Hill, where we'll have meetings with hopefully our senators and representative there in the building. It's actually great. We're right inside the Capitol itself, not in one of the office buildings. We'll be doing that while we're down in DC for the legislative meetings. And then in July, we're going to have a legislative and regulatory forum. This is kind of our recap event for all the happenings that we've had this past year in the legislature, as well as what's going on regulatory wise for our members. You can tune into that and get a much uh, deeper conversation about what we've been working on rather than just the couple things you'll hear about today. In September, we are going to once again co-host the Delaware Realtor Summit. I'm sorry, the Delaware Real Estate Summit. This event is a joint event with the Delaware State Housing Authority as well as the Delaware Home Builders Association. It's a one-day session, probably be here in Dover again, where you can learn about a lot of different things. I think this year we're going to focus on zoning in particular and smart growth practices. So if you have any interest in planning, zoning, this is a great event for you to tune into, but just generally, just to learn more about what's happening in the market across Delaware. We'll have another DAR Connect session in September. In October, we'll have our annual meeting on Zoom. We have a brand new event called Realtor Week. I'm not going to provide too much information about that right now. We're working on all the logistics for that, but that'll be a great new event we'll be rolling out. We have an RPAC Major Investor event. Joe might touch on that a bit today. November, we are all back at the NAR conference. I believe it's in New Orleans this year. Should be a lot of fun. We have a tax solution seminar. If you haven't attended this before and you want to make sure you're doing everything you could to make sure your taxes are in order each year, please tune into this session. It's fantastic. It's actually with the accountant we use here at the association, and she teaches all of you what you need to do to be more prepared throughout the year. And then lastly, in December, we will conclude with our officer installation and awards ceremony. With that, I'm pleased to turn things over to John Ford, who is our DAR president-elect and a member of our DAR Forms Committee. He's going to walk through our recently released forms. Give me 1 second, John. All right, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Wes. It's truly an honor on behalf of the Forms Committee to be able to present to you today. The Forms Committee is made up of six of us that are realtors. It's myself, Bruce Plummer is the chair, Camilla Conlon, Bobby Slagle, Maggie Haas, and R.T. Christopher. We're guided by our legal counsel, Andy Taylor. I also want to thank Wes Stefanik for his contributions to the Forms Committee, and especially thank Matt Lafferty, who not only gives us good feedback, but keeps the edits going in real time as we're attempting to go over all these forms. An extra special thank you, though, to Tom Burns, who was a founding member of this, what was an advisory group initially in 2007, when we first had the statewide Delaware Agreement of Sale. Prior to that, for those of you that don't know, each county had their own agreement of sale. So Tom chaired that committee just until last year, and again was a founding member and a great contributor. So DAR forms are very well thought out. I can promise you, we go over every word, punctuation, everything else that we can think of to make sure that it fits the use of our members. And our members, we recognize, have different business models, different uses, but we take all of that into consideration. They're copywritten forms, and your membership allows you the right to use them, but they're not mandatory, and you should consult with your broker or manager for your own company policy for use of any of these forms. So 5 recent forms were launched out in the beginning of this month, and I'm going to review those. If you do have questions and suggestions in the future, you can go to the DAR website, which is delawarerealtor.com, and there's a form there to make any suggestions for any of the forms that we have, or even ones that we don't have. So the very first one is the appraisal gap addendum. I think you'll all recognize that a lot of these forms were long coming, that we've needed them. We were, however, backed up with the buyer agency agreement that took quite a bit of time in the last 18 months. So we now have an appraisal gap addendum. And again, I'm going to do this at a very high level. So I think the forms are very well written, and you can understand the detail and the minutia yourself as you read through them. But the appraisal gap addendum allows someone that is going to pay more than a property appraises for to state that amount. So they set the amount over the appraised value in case the property does not appraise for the purchase price. And then what happens if it's less? Well, it does allow the seller to tell the buyer that they're willing to sell for less. It outlines the time frame that they need to let them know. It directs the buyer as to what they have to do with providing a copy of the appraisal. So the buyer does not immediately have a right to void, and that's very important for you to take away today. It allows the parties to work this out if they don't agree for the exact last price. And then if that's worked out, they agree to amend the agreement of sale and the terms regarding financing and the purchase price. So that's the appraisal gap addendum. The pre-settlement inspection acknowledgement is just that. It's a very short form. Again, it's not a mandatory form. Some people love it. Some people may not want to use it. But it is the form that allows you to confirm that the buyer has the right to have a pre-settlement inspection done solely for the right to inspect repairs that have been necessitated by the inspections, and that it conforms with the terms of the agreement of sale. So they check off that they either waive their right for this or that they've completed their pre-settlement inspection. It's just an acknowledgement. The next form is we have due diligence up next. So due diligence runs kind of in tandem with the as-is addendum. So, we had language in there that confused everyone, and whether it's confusing or not, I think we all have to admit there were different opinions of what as-is meant. So we have an as-is addendum and we have a due diligence addendum. The due diligence addendum is simply that. It allows the buyer to investigate the property for their intended use, including the systems like a regular inspection. A lot of the terms go along with the regular inspection. It is important to know that you check no for inspections if you're using the due diligence addendum. So it's not a yes to that and then adding this. You're removing the inspection contingency and replacing it with a due diligence addendum where the seller still makes the property available and accessible, and the buyer has the right to investigate the property with inspections or any other zoning intended use. And in their sole discretion, if it doesn't meet their needs and is not satisfactory, they can void the agreement of sale. So it is that simple. Inspection reports are not to be shared unless agreed to by the parties. So you don't send any results over. You simply say, yes, we're moving forward, or no, we are not. We know in our world, sometimes there's continued negotiation, and that can happen too. But the due diligence addendum allows a buyer to investigate the use of the property and the condition of the property and have the ability to void the agreement of sale. The pet addendum is it's a tenant addendum. It's a landlord-tenant addendum. And it is not a service animal addendum. That is a separate addendum. It's not one that we provide currently. So this pet addendum is just for a pet that is going to occupy a property, and it gives the outlines of deposits, where that deposit is held, and what the tenant's responsibilities are with that pet to maintain the property and to be responsible for all damages, to pick up after the pet, to be liable for anything that the pet may do on or around the property. And it details those parts of that contingency of having a pet added and included in the lease. And then our last one is the as-is addendum. Again, I'm going to call it in tandem with due diligence. This one is as is, with the buyer not having the right to request any repairs, but the phrase we've been using, the informational purposes only, that this addendum, again, will be checked no if you're doing as is for that category. So it's important to note that you're going to check the ones that apply, the categories that apply. So again, not to get too much into the details for you, but home inspection, WDI, wastewater, septic, well, radon, swimming pool, and other. Some of those you may want to inspect thoroughly, included in with the terms of a regular inspection that's in the agreement of sale. Some of these categorically you may want to do just as is. And this will outline that you will, if it's as is, you will check no for that particular inspection. And then you will do those inspections, but you're agreeing that you're waiving all rights to request any repairs or to attempt to negotiate any other terms of the agreement of sale. Those are the main highlights for the forms. And again, I just want to suggest to all of you that if you have questions, ideas about forms, we welcome those. Bruce Plummer does an excellent job of bringing a summary of all these remarks to us, and we discuss them all. So you can go to the DelawareRealtor.com website, the DAR website, and make your suggestions on the proper form there. So thank you again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the new forms.
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. I am Matt Lafferty. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for DAR. Today, I want to walk you through the proposed changes to the education regulations from the Delaware Real Estate Commission. These were developed by the Commission's Education Committee Task Force and introduced earlier this month. If you scan the QR code on the next few slides, you'll be able to review the full red line versions of the proposed regulations. I will note these changes do not impact the current licensing period that ends next month. So everything for continuing education happening right now is still in full effect. I'm going to start with the module structure. This is just going to be a high-level overview, so I strongly encourage you to review the full proposal for complete details. The biggest change is the module content and structure. Module 1 is now a full 3 hours of fair housing. Agency has been moved out to another module, and this module now satisfies the NAR fair housing membership requirement. Modules 2 and 3 remain largely the same, which are currently and will continue to be professional standards and real estate documents, respectively. Module 4 has been renamed to risk management, currently known as office management. Module 5 is a new module. It is called Agency and Licensing Law, and this will have a stronger focus on agency relationships and Delaware license law. Module 6 is now Legislative Update and Contemporary Issues, replacing what was previously Practices of Real Estate. And then Module 7 remains the elective, but now offers more flexibility. Licensees still need to complete 3 hours of a Module 7 elective, but those hours can now be taken in a minimum 60-minute increments to accommodate the ability of taking classes with different topics. Next, there is a new requirement, and it is Module 8 broker supervision. Wes, can you change the slide? Thank you. This is required for all brokers of record, so those holding an RD license, and those who are designated as on-site supervisors. For new licensees, the requirements themselves have not changed. The 4 new salesperson modules will still need to be completed within 90 days. However, the naming has changed from modules. Currently, it's new salesperson modules 1 through 4. It would now be new salesperson modules A through D. This should help reduce confusion from the standard modules and hopefully fix that issue. So to summarize all that I spoke about and to go over to summarize renewal requirements moving forward, licensees who are not designated on-site supervisors and do not hold an RB broker of record license will continue to need 21 hours of continuing education to renew their license, so modules 1 through 7. Licensees who are a designated on-site supervisor and or hold an RB broker of record license will need 24 hours of continuing education to renew their license, so modules 1 through 8. On the next slide, there are some other changes to the education regulations. First, course providers, including associations, and if your brokerage also hosts courses, will now need to be approved by the commission. This currently does not exist, and that approval will last for a 2-year period. The caveat to this is if an instructor is approved for their own course, they are automatically considered an approved course provider and do not need a separate application to also be a course provider. And that's only if they're teaching their own courses. Second, the course approval process is being streamlined. Instead of the commission reapproving the same courses multiple times for different providers, there will now be an administrative approval process. For example, if DAR gets a course approved and another association wants to offer the same course, the other association can submit an application to the commission with a copy of the original approval, along with written permission from the originating provider, and receive approval administratively without restarting the full process and without the Real Estate Commission and the Real Estate Commission's Education Committee having to reapprove the same courses over and over again. This reduces duplication and will improve efficiency. And finally, instructor approvals will now be valid for a 4-year period. And there are also some changes, minor updates to the pre-licensing and brokers courses, specifically our requirements and content. All of these changes are expected to take effect and be approved in early June 2026. We are still waiting additional clarification if these will apply for the next licensing cycle beginning May 1. We will share that when we have that confirmed. Switching gears to a DAR education opportunity, Wes kind of already touched on this, but in recognition of Fair Housing Month, DAR will be hosting an At Home with Diversity certification on April 22nd. This is a 1-day in-person course at the DAR office in Dover. It will be instructed by Mary Chippa. Cost to members is $100, non-members is $200, and it is currently pending CE approval for modules 6 and 7. That will be for this current licensing cycle ending April 30th. If you're interested, you can visit our website or scan the QR code on the slide to register. And lastly, for me, I wanted to take a moment to highlight the Delaware Realtor Care Foundation. The foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that provides emergency assistance to realtors, members, and communities across Delaware during times of critical need. That can include natural disasters, serious illness, or other unexpected crises where individuals and families need immediate support. This is one of the ways our association gives back, not just to support our members, but to communities we serve. In addition to supporting realtors, the foundation also partners with and contributes to community organizations throughout Delaware, helping extend the impact even further. If you or someone in the realtor family is expecting a hardship, the foundation is here as a resource. And if you're in a position to give back, your support makes a difference and a meaningful difference. Every dollar goes towards helping individuals and families where they need it most, and contributions are 100% tax deductible. To learn more, to apply for assistance, to make a donation, you can go to our website, delawarerealtorcares.org, or you can scan the QR code on the slide. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Lindsay Conway, DAR's Director of Marketing and Communications, for an update on DAR Communications.
Hey everyone, I'm Lindsay Conway, Director of Marketing Communications, as Matt just said, and I wanted to take a few minutes to walk through how I communicate with you and where you can stay most informed. So on the next slide here, we have our Fast Facts newsletter. Our Fast Facts newsletter is our primary communication tool. It goes out every Wednesday afternoon. If you read just one thing from us, please make it this. It includes updates, events, deadlines, and resources you can use right away. If you're not receiving it, the most common reason is that your email isn't updated with your local association, so please check in on that. We also put out our monthly housing market statistics, which we put numbers out for the statewide numbers as well as county level, and they're designed for you to use with your clients and in your business, and you can see an example of that here on the slide. We distribute them through Fast Facts, social media, and to the media after the 15th of each month. And you can always check under the buyers and sellers headline on our website, and the market stats are going to be there at all times. We also put out Realtor Policy Briefs, which is a monthly update focused on advocacy and legislative issues. And this is where we break down what's happening at the state level and how it impacts your business. We have our Delaware RPAC Quarterly, which are updates specific to RPAC, so you can stay informed on advocacy efforts and anything new with that. Social media, we put out updates mainly through Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're active there, it's a great way to stay connected, share information with your audience, and if nothing else, check out our photos because you might be in them. On the next slide here, we know everyone communicates differently, so we've made it easier for you to customize how you hear from us. You can update your preferences now. So by scanning the QR code, you can open your member communication preferences. From there, you can choose how you want to receive information, whether that's by email, text, or both. You can also select preferences by topic. You can update these preferences at any time using the link at the bottom of our emails. We also now offer text alerts. For more immediate updates, you can text DAR during business hours with quick questions and just to our regular phone number. And if you wanted to do that, the same means to do that would just be scan that QR code. You can change your member preferences or just simply send us a text. Our goal is to make sure you're getting timely, relevant information in a way that works best for you. If you're not receiving something you should be or want to adjust your preferences, this is the best place to start. And I will now turn over to Joe Brennan, our Director of Government Affairs.
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate that intro. We're going to talk about, obviously, our advocacy efforts this year. I am your Director of Government Affairs for the Delaware Association of Realtors. Let's go to the next slide. Let's start with our priorities, policy priorities for 2026. First and foremost, Delaware is facing a housing shortage. Right now, we need over 25,000 new housing units, and we must add 2,500 more each year just to keep up with the demand. That's not just a statistic, that's families struggling to find homes, workers unable to live near their jobs, and first-time home buyers being priced out. Legislative support for increasing housing supply, especially affordable housing, is critical. Second, we need to address Delaware's realty transfer tax. It's one of the highest in the nation and a major barrier to affordability. We're advocating for solutions like tiered systems, exemptions for seniors in affordable housing, and targeted incentives on either the buyer or the seller side to reduce that burden. Third, we are calling for improvements to the landlord-tenant framework. That includes streamlining the eviction process, ensuring access to tenant performance records, and creating a balanced rights and responsibilities guide that supports both property owners and renters. And finally, we continue to strongly oppose rent control or rent stabilization policies. The truth is, these policies often reduce housing supply and discourage new development. Instead, we support proven alternatives like increased funding for affordable housing programs that expand access and opportunity. These policy priorities were set and approved by our very important Public Policy Committee, and we thank each one of our members of our Public Policy Committee for their commitment. Next slide, please. So, of course, advancing these priorities has not been without challenges. This year, inflation and broader economic uncertainty have made it even harder for Delawareans to find affordable housing. Costs are up across the board, from construction materials to borrowing rates, making new development more difficult. At the same time, we're still dealing with a significant housing supply shortage, which continues to put pressure on both home prices and rents. And importantly, rent control and rent stabilization proposals remain active in the conversation. These policies, while often positioned as solutions, risk making the problem worse by discouraging investment and limiting new housing development. These challenges reinforce why our advocacy work is so important and why we must stay engaged. Next slide, please. Despite those challenges, we've made meaningful progress this year. First, Senate Bill 201 focuses on bringing real estate wholesaling under regulation. We worked closely with the bill sponsor to help craft the legal language, ensuring it protects consumers while providing clarity for the industry. Thanks in large part to testimony from our members, this bill has passed out of committee and is now heading to the Senate floor for a vote. Second, House Bill 311 represents a strong collaborative effort. We work with stakeholders across multiple sectors to develop language that promotes stability and balance in landlord-tenant relationships and communications. This bill also passed out of committee and has gained additional co-sponsors as it moves towards a full House floor vote. These wins show that what's possible when realtors engage, advocate, and bring real-world expertise to the legislative process. Next slide, please. And that brings me to one of the most important tools we have, RPAC. The Realtors Political Action Committee, or RPAC, is how we turn our advocacy into action. It allows us to support candidates and initiatives that understand and champion the real estate industry. RPAC plays a critical role in shaping policies around property taxes, zoning, and housing regulations, the very issues that impact your business and your clients every day. Our industry is constantly facing new proposals that could worsen the housing crisis or create additional barriers to home ownership. But our strength comes from one thing, unity. When realtors invest in RPAC, we are investing in our collective voice, our ability to effectively advocate, and the future of real estate. So I encourage each of you to consider making an investment in RPAC, because together we can continue to fight for smart policies that move Delaware forward. And you can see at the top right-hand corner of your screen, you have the barcode to actually go in and make contributions. So I encourage you all to do that. And now it is my pleasure to turn this over to someone who's been a strong leader on our advocacy team, Mr. Andy Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be with you here today and give you a few updates on some legal and regulatory matters. First of all, following up on a couple things that have been mentioned so far. Remember that the At Home with Diversity designation course you could submit to the Real Estate Commission Education Committee to have that approved as a module of education if it's not already approved for something you like, but I'm sure they're taking care of that. But that applies not just to that, but other advanced courses. Remember, we were successful several years ago in having the rules change so that those type of advanced courses you could send in the paperwork and get approved as a module for you. So that's good. Bring you up to date on a few things here from my real estate library, which is now 1,057 folders with 16,755 files. I'll bring just a little bit of that to you right now. It grows every day. First of all, in case you hadn't heard, last week on March 20th, 26, the FinCEN cash reporting rule was vacated by a federal judge. It wasn't just, the ruling was not just that it would only not apply to the plaintiffs in that case. It was vacated nationwide. So that's currently not being enforced by FinCEN. You might find locally that that's being implemented in different ways, so stay a little bit flexible on that. You might find that some settlement attorneys still want to gather the information in case the rule comes back into effect and they have to report it. I think that'll be, fewer of the attorneys. I saw one of the memos from one of the title companies yesterday. They were saying, don't even bother collecting the information. It's vacated nationwide. I think the thinking is that if it somehow comes back in some form, it will only be for reporting from that point forward. We'll see. So a little flexibility on that is understood. A little bit of an update for you on transfer on death deeds. Some people might refer to as a TOD, a transfer on death deed, and the revocation procedure for that. So when you're listing a property, if you're asking for a copy of the deed, if you see that it's a TOD, that's fine. You still only have to deal with the person who you view as the owner. You do not need the consent of the beneficiaries that are mentioned on that TOD. But here's the little wrinkle. You might find then you sell the property, it's under contract, it goes to the settlement lawyer. Some settlement lawyers might take the position that they want a revocation of that recorded prior to settlement. Others might just include the revocation in the deed that they're preparing from the seller to the buyer. Either way is effective as a revocation, but here's the little wrinkle. A revocation is only effective if it's recorded prior to the death of the person that made the TOD. Whereas a regular deed from seller to buyer, that's effective upon delivery of that deed as part of the settlement process. It doesn't matter then if the seller died before it was recorded. It was the fact that it was delivered that makes it effective. So you might find if there's a situation they're nervous about the seller remaining alive until they get that deed recorded that has the revocation of the TOD in it, they may want the revocation recorded at the recorder deeds prior to settlement. On transfer tax overpayments, the Division of Revenue is still working on revising the state realty transfer tax form to acknowledge that in an arm's length transaction, it's legal to pay the transfer tax on the negotiated sale price rather than thinking that it needs to be paid on a higher assessed value if the assessment happens to be higher. So the Division of Revenue is still working on revising the form, but I think everybody's on board with the consistent way of interpreting the law as paying the transfer tax based on the arm's length negotiated price. Next topic, our wholesaling and guarantee fund bill is pending. I believe it'll be on the Senate floor this Thursday, and that applies to wholesaling transactions. You know what that is, and says that the wholesaler needs to be a real estate licensee. And in the agreement that they would enter into, the wholesaler would enter into with the owner, there would have to be disclosure language in that and give them a 21-day time period in which they could rescind that contract with the wholesaler if they want to. Then, assuming it's not rescinded, the wholesaler then would go ahead and try to market that contract to the ultimate buyer. On that second stage of the transaction, there is no right of rescission. Then this bill, if approved, also updates the real estate guarantee fund in order to loosen up a little bit, make it a little easier for a member of the public to recover money from the guarantee fund, which is hovering just a little under $1 million right now at this point. And in order to give that benefit to the public, this grew out of a case that came out of Sussex County where there were a number of members of the public that were injured by the acts of a real estate brokerage company. And a lawyer representing one of the complainants and claimants in the guarantee fund matter, frankly, did too good of a job because right towards the end he said, well, there's just one more thing I think I might be able to try to collect the money. Well, then they couldn't award the money because the law says they have to exhaust all means to try to collect on that judgment. I felt like telling him, shut up, I think you're going to get your money. But anyway, I couldn't do that during the hearing. So unfortunately, that lawyer, he's doing a great job, but he did almost too good of a job. So that highlighted the need to try to loosen up a little bit, make it a little easier for the real estate commission to award money, which hopefully that will go through as well. So that's a good bill that DAR worked on for quite a while, took input from a lot of people, looked at similar provisions in many different states. Some other things that we're working on deal with obviously attending the real estate commission meetings, seeing what they're working on, putting in input where we can. And we have a draft of a bill. We discussed a little bit with the real estate commission at the last month. We're going to take some things out that they seem to have some hesitation about, but proceed forward with a bill that deals with, first of all, some clarification on the definition of independent contractor, making it clear that whatever the relationship is stated in writing, like the Internal Revenue Code requires, stated in writing, stating that between the brokerage organization and the salesperson, they're either an employee or an independent contractor, then that's what's effective to put that relationship into effect. Secondly, to put into place an enforcement process that some other commissions and boards have in Delaware called a letter of concern. Something that the real estate commissioners themselves have expressed frustration about, as we have, is that there are complaints filed and then they might sit there for 2 years. Well, what's the point of having a law or regulation if you're not even basically enforcing it? So what the letter of concern would allow is that if a complaint is filed, let's say, for example, of it appears that a licensee was not following the advertising guidelines, an investigator looks at it, the commission member who's assigned to that case might say, well, yeah, it certainly looks like a violation, but the investigator and the attorney general's office doesn't want to proceed forward with it as a full violation hearing. They could issue a letter of concern instead. That would be a private letter. It's not a discipline. It does not become public, just a private letter sent from the commission to the licensee to say, hey, here was your advertisement. It appears that it does not comply with the rules and regulations. We suggest you update your advertising methodology. Oh, and the person, oh, all right, thanks, and go ahead and make that change. That would be fine. But that's private. It's not considered discipline. And it would help move along some of those more minor violations that end up on the docket there with the real estate commission. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get with just the bill being pared down to just those two topics, maybe be able to get that to go through the session. We'll see, or at least maybe get it introduced. We are working on some other topics as well of looking at things. The Real Estate Commission is rightfully concerned about the duties of the broker for supervision and what does that mean? And we're concerned about it and trying to put in meaningful input about, oh, I just got another screen. I guess that means I'm supposed to stop soon. That put together some more modern guidelines, we think, to what is considered adequate supervision of an office or a branch office. So we're trying to have input and meaningful discussions with the Real Estate Commission about that. I'm very pleased to see Commissioner LeBlanc has taken an active role in ARELO, the national organization, and the Association of Real Estate License Law Officials, and attending their meetings so that she can bring good information back to Delaware, taking a look at what other states are doing, for example, with the use of AI in real estate transactions, and do we need to take a look at that on the state level? And so we're very actively engaged with the Real Estate Commission about that. And yes, I'll mention, as I have before, the real estate commissioners themselves are just as frustrated with DelPros as you are. And they continue to have discussions with DPR, the Division of Professional Regulation, about how to make DelPros even better. But remember that DelPros is a licensing tool. It is not an office management tool. So they're trying to still, though, to make that better as they can. And we continue, of course, obviously, to watch what's happening in the brokerage world and the marketplace. You're probably working as I am, trying to keep up with all that, with the portal wars and the office exclusives and coming soons and days on market and algorithms for estimates or not being displayed and all that. Pretty exciting times there. All of that in flux, and we're trying to track that and see where all that lands and see if there's anything needed on the state level to deal with all that. Of course, cyber fraud and notary fraud are still key concerns that we're working on. The Uniform Law Commissioners, that's a nationwide organization. They're working on some sample legislation for dealing with deed fraud. So we're going to see what their product is and look at how that might work here in Delaware. And I'd like to say, as I've warned you before, I think your number one asset is your reputation. So do everything you can to protect your reputation, and we'll continue to watch out for the fraudsters and the deep fakes and everything. And in this time of wars in the world, we have to be aware that that means that even the national actors, the government actors in other countries who are trying to steal money to pay for their missile launches and other things, that they're working even harder to try to steal your money. So guard against it. I think the number one method still seems to be the business email compromise, which is difficult for all of us, on our device, and you're looking and you can't see that little period there that's a different name. So please, 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 folks, use all your best practices guarding against fraud and the wire fraud and deed fraud and them trying to steal your money. With that, I will go ahead and pause. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Give me one moment. I'm going to bring back Denise too. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. I don't actually have any comments in the comment box in the chat. So if you do have anything that comes up after watching this that you have any questions about, just feel free to shoot us an email at info@delawarerealtor.com. As Lindsay said, you can also text us at our main phone number, which is 302-734-4444. Feel free to call or text, as well as go to our website for everything else. We try to house everything that we talked about, as well as everything else we do, which you haven't heard about today. Everything can be found on our website. So our fast fax emails, our website, that's the best places to get all our updates on everything going on. With that, Denise, do you have any final words?
No, just wanted to say, hope you guys enjoyed and got some good information today. And while you're traveling out there, please be safe.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.